My guest today is an actress, writer, producer, and entrepreneur whose work has helped define internet-era geek culture. After studying mathematics and music performance at the University of Texas at Austin, she moved to Los Angeles to pursue acting, appearing in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. In 2007, she created, wrote, and starred in The Guild, the pioneering web series about a group of MMO players that became a cultural phenomenon and helped establish a new model for creator-driven digital storytelling. She later co-founded the online media company Geek Sundry, expanding her influence across gaming, tabletop culture, and streaming entertainment. As well as starring in dozens of films and TV roles, she is also the author of 2 New York Times best-selling memoirs, You're Never Weird on the Internet, brackets almost, and Embrace Your Weird. And now she's bringing The Guild back, revisiting the series that helped launch a generation of internet storytelling in the form of a musical. Welcome, Felicia Day.
That was quite an intro. Thank you.
Well, it's quite a career. That is, a tiny fraction of all the things you've done, Felicia. So I'm excited to talk to you about it.
One day I should focus, but then I'll just be dead.
So yeah, as I said at the end there, you're bringing the Guild back as a musical. Why now? Is there something about the sort of current cultural moment that made it feel newly relevant for you?
Well, I mean, given that I've been developing the musical with these wonderful lyricist and composer and book writer for 6 years, it's not just something that just happened.
Right, fair.
It was something just out of the blue. The composer and lyricist, Mark and Sam, had developed a couple songs for the show, like just through a workshop. And they reached out just randomly on the internet and said, hey, can we option the Guild? And I listened to the songs and they made me laugh. And I eventually got into producing it more. COVID kind of set us back a little bit on our timelines, but that's just like what happened.
Right.
And we finally have been starting to do readings. We did one in Los Angeles last year, and we just completed one in London. So, yeah, I'm more focused on getting this done, and then also bringing the show back in a reunion movie format. So it's all Guild all the time after being gone away from it for 10 years. So it's a little strange, but actually really great.
Yeah, so fun. I came to the Work in Progress in London last week.
Thank you. It was such a thrill for you to be there.
I loved it. It was so fun and it's so funny and yeah, it's just got all the elements, right, that a musical needs to have. And I mean, it was just like a reading with each of you standing at mics, but you could feel how the whole big production is going to be. Yeah, just excellent stuff.
Great. Can you be my agent? We want to set it up and do it again in London. Please help me.
Well, tell me, what does, moving to a musical format, has that allowed you to do some stuff that you creatively that you couldn't do when it was just a web series?
Well, I have to say I did everything on the web series. We started out and shot the first couple episodes in our houses for like $300. So that was when YouTube had just started. Nobody knew gamers did anything, especially women, but also just talking to each other on the computer was a very foreign concept. I know it's crazy, but yes, I'm that old. And so it's been such a journey to be able to have some of the shorthand be natural for people. Yes, people game together. They game online together. Like that's just something that strangely I had to explain to people in such detail and they didn't get it back in the day. Also, it's been really refreshing to hand over sort of the creative reins to a younger, they are younger than me and they're a new generation, but they're also super geeky and super gamers. And so having my work more in their hands has been really gratifying for me as a performer, being able to play this part that I invented almost 20 years ago. It's kind of wild, but it works. And it actually has renewed my excitement about the show in general. I burned out really bad on it in the last season 6 we did in 2012. And I did not want to have anything to do with these characters or the world or anything for so many years. But the journey, especially in the last year of working on the musical and finding joy in the characters and performing and all of that really inspired me to start writing a reunion movie. So hopefully we'll be able to do that through Kickstarter this next year. And if not, I still love my characters, no matter what. It renewed my faith in sharing what I created with other people, which is, counterintuitive, but it totally worked.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good to hear. And how are you at, obviously in your professional life, you take direction all the time, but rarely, I imagine, for worlds that you've completely created and, had full creative control. How are you, when people give you notes? Because I imagine you were being directed for this musical.
Yes, we had an amazing director who is based in London, Dean Johnson, and he is just brilliant. And I will say that, I definitely had opinions about, tweaking my own dialogue. I certainly wasn't shy about that, which is probably inappropriate for an actor in a play. You want to really honor the dramaturge and the writer's words. But at the same time, I made a conscious effort to be like, I need to separate myself from controlling everything in this world to only controlling my performance. And I created this show to be a performer. I wasn't being hired in Hollywood, especially for roles that I thought were valid and things that I would do really well. And so I created this role for myself. It was always intended to be an acting vehicle. And yet when I'm worried about, the sandwiches arriving for craft service, or like we don't have a light, or we don't have budget to actually do this sequence, so let's scale it down. Like it was always last thought. My performance was always the last thought. And so it's been so refreshing, especially for the play performance last week, where I just didn't have to worry about anything but showing up, doing my very best, singing and performing and having a great time with the cast. And yeah, it really made me not want to leave. And I do have a family here in Los Angeles, so that would have been bad.
I mean, on the subject of like the world changing, You wrote this at a particular time of internet culture, as you said, and things have moved on in certain ways, and all sorts of things have happened now. You've got streaming, Twitch, parasociality, influencers, monetization, all of this kind of stuff that wasn't really around when you started. So, did you feel like you wanted to update anything with some of those, to match how video game culture has evolved as well?
Well, the good thing is that the play or the musical is kind of set in the time of MMOs. We don't really call it out explicitly, but it is sort of retro in that way, where we are in the world where MMOs are still relevant. And in the stage play, that works. It certainly works. For sure, the MMO culture is gone, sadly. And that's something that I've had to grapple with in doing the reunion movie. I think I've done a really good job at it, and I'm excited if we get to, again, film it. It definitely, I feel like it's more relevant. But you're right. Like the world moves on, especially in tech and entertainment and the way we connect. And boy, it's really bad in some ways, but also really great. And I will say the utopian version and vision that I had of how the internet was going to make us feel and how it's so liberating and stuff is a little sour, a little more cynical now.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, you have to have faith that, yes, a lot of bad comes with evolution and new technologies and new creativity. But there is also the good that comes with everything. It's just life moves on, and you got to catch up or be stuck.
Yeah. I mean, for anyone who hasn't seen the original, the basic premise of the story is that your character is in a guild playing a game like World of Warcraft type kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And you're all buddies in that way that sort of in that era, you could become kind of friends with people who are completely different to you just by virtue of playing games together. And it starts when one of the members of the guild turns up at your actual house and sort of breaches that divide line between online life and real life. And it's, then the rest of the story is how that outplays. Is that like based on any truth? Did you ever like meet up with people that you met on the internet during that time of your life?
I mean, this is again aging me, but when I was like 14 years old, I was homeschooled and I was living in San Antonio, Texas, and I would play MUDs. Like dial-up MUDs, where you would actually hear the modem dial up, and it was like, and we had a meetup, and I remember going to the arcade where I usually went, and we had a meetup with like 5 or 6 people, and I remember a lot of the guys had super long hair, a couple of them were super old. We did not necessarily like, oh wow, I'm a 14-year-old girl, and my mom's over there, and like it was very strange. I met up with people after that, with people I met on Prodigy through an Ultima games online bulletin board. And I had a long distance crush on someone through those years. Yes, these are things that really happened to me. Cut to World of Warcraft, which was in a much later part of my life. It was when I was in my 20s and in Los Angeles, kind of struggling as an actor. And I certainly did meet up with some of my guildmates. And in fact, a couple of them, my raid leader and the lead warlock in my raiding group, are in one of the episodes of the guild. If you see episode 4, we're about to go into Cheesy Bears, and there's a couple that walks toward the camera.
Gate 4, Vork taking Blades, right?
Blades isn't coming. Vork didn't want to invite him. Something about fireballing our priorities.
Hey guys, wait up! It's a guild meeting. Everyone should be here.
That's my old raid leader.
Oh, that's so nice.
She's standing there, and then the lead warlock. So yeah, there's a lot of elements, and we're still friends. So
yeah.
Again, it could be super awkward. You don't know what you're going to get, and that's kind of the fun part of it.
Yeah. You have to find a way to get them a walk-on part in the musical or something.
Listen, or the movie. I'll
Or the
slap you
movie.
in there.
Yeah. Nice. Well, this seems like a good point at which to come to the premise of the podcast. So, Felicia, I've asked you to pick the 5 video games you'd like to put on your ideal fictional games machine. You have picked 5 absolute corkers. This is going to be a fan favorite console, I can already tell.
Oh, good. Great.
But very appropriately, we're going back to November 2004 for your first pick, the game that's, I guess, has influenced a huge amount of your life. Tell us, what's the game and why do you love it?
Game number 1 is World of Warcraft. And I love it because I used it as an escape, but at the same time, it was the one thing that made me happy for years. When I was in a really low point in my life, it gave me purpose. And because it had people connected to it, which was something I'd always dreamed about as a kid. Like I said, I was a very lonely homeschool kid. And I was always constantly trying to reach other people. And again, the mud story is like the saddest story ever. I'm just so desperate for a friend. And I cannot overestimate the isolation with which my brother and I were raised. We never had a party. We never had a sleepover. We never had a friend over. We never had a play date, really. So there was no contact with the outside world. And there's just, that's just something that is like this inherent pit of sort of wanting to belong is inside me. And when I moved to Hollywood, I did not have any of that because I was very strange. I had a lot of skills that were not useful. And I was very delusional in thinking that I was going to just make it, So there was a lot of factors combining to make me put me in a very low point. And when my brother invited me to his guild, I logged on and I found a sense of purpose that was probably misplaced for a while, but was something that I derived great joy from. And yes, I became a little too addicted to it, a lot too addicted to it probably. But at the end of the day, it really got me through. And it really identified something in my life that I needed to change. And then it ultimately led to the best thing that ever happened in my career because I took that experience and I put it into art. It will always be something that I'm super proud of and fond of. If I had all the time in the world, I would love to have a Space Ventral Pocket where I actually could play WoW to the degree that I did before with no harm to my family, friends, or body. I know that there's housing now, and I'm like, oh my God, I really want that housing. But I know, having been a professional violinist for a long time, I don't practice anymore because I'm just like, there's no way I'll ever be as good as I used to be. Same thing with WoW. I cannot put 6 hours a day in. I cannot be the warlock or priest that I remember myself being. And it's really, it would not be satisfying to be in there 1 hour, every other day. It's just not going to happen. But again, we're in a theoretical universe where I could play games all the time. World of Warcraft would be like a daily diet.
Right. Okay, there's lots of follow-ups I have. So
Great.
you mentioned you played it to an unhealthy degree. What are we talking here? Was it like you wake up and then it's what you spend your whole day doing because you're waiting for
Yeah.
the phone to ring for acting jobs?
Yep. I mean, pretty much. I remember my partner, I don't know why we survived some of those years, but he would just drop off some food and I wouldn't even look at him. He'd drop off dinner. And he's not a gamer. He doesn't
Right.
care. So,
Okay.
oh boy, it was rough. And, I remember just spending hours trying to get somebody like this limited edition pet, like a dragon whelp or something, a red one. I would spend every morning, I would log on and I would farm dream foil for the Flask of the Titans that I made. I could not wait for any new drop or any update. I played the auction house. I mean, it was just on every level. It was my home. It was my place where I belonged. It was where I felt like I had purpose. And that's not great. It really should be a recreational thing. And that's where it kind of got into the world of maybe being too unhealthy for me.
I kind of relate to some of what you're saying though, because I think, particularly if you're pursuing a creative career or a career in the arts at all, there's that period where you're pretty young and no one knows who you are, and where you want to get to is so far from where you currently are, right? And the number of steps you have to take are generally quite small. It's not like the phone rings and you suddenly have, you're where you want to be. It just takes time, right?
Yeah.
And so games for me as well, like I would spend a lot of time playing them because they just gave me, like you say, a sense of achieving something, purpose, belonging, all of that, while you're still like, turning the cogs to get where you want to get to, creatively. But
Yeah, I think we all need purpose in our life. I mean, I think the basis for happiness is feeling like you are contributing to the world and you're improving yourself in increments. I really feel that. I know a lot of famous people who are super rich and super famous and they're not happy because they're not actually living a life that is authentic to them. And I think that's, we all just want to be useful, I mean, I think that's it. And for me to like farm, I really should have started planting wheat in my backyard in Los Angeles or like but I wanted to be with other people. It's
Yeah.
really hard in modern society. We don't live in little villages where I can go down the street and be like, hey, Kathy, do you want to start a lemonade stand? Or, like this is what childhood gives you. But then you're just kind of adrift in this world. And so it's almost like the games that give you, I mean, World of Warcraft at the time especially, it was like I live in a small community. I have a bunch of people who I know are going to be there for me every day. My friends and I just went on a cruise, right? And it was 5 of my friends. And every morning we just text each other, where are we having breakfast today? And we went down there and then we do some activities together and then we have dinner together. And I was like, hey, this is like, think how life should be. We should be living in smaller places. We should be able to like just meet up with people, not planning 3 weeks in advance. And we should be able to rely on people like, hey, can you go get my, hat or whatever, So it was just little small things like that. But I think that's what World of Warcraft did for me. It's just like when you can understand everything about the way you live and be in contact with it, it just makes you feel like you're more in control and more satisfied because you belong somewhere. I don't belong to Los Angeles. It's one of the biggest cities in the world, right?
it's not walkable, that's for sure.
It's certainly not walkable, for sure.
Mm. And then we'll move on from World of Warcraft in a second, but just lastly, what was it that kind of broke the spell for you?
I think that I started playing so much that I would feel empty and want to cry at night when I went to sleep because I would realize underneath that I wasn't actually doing anything with my life. I wasn't actually accomplishing anything. It felt like I was accomplishing something. And then the reality of it is like it could get turned off tomorrow and it's gone. Remember like City of Heroes, it got unplugged and poor people were so devastated. And it's like the realization that it could all just disappear tomorrow. Yes, your whole family could get wiped out. But it's much more likely that somebody will just unplug your game and you put so much work into it and there's nothing to show for it. So I think that was part of it. And then, I started join like a self-help group with like 4 or 5 other women. And we would show up every week eating pancakes and sharing our wins for the week, which is so dorky. But at the same time, that peer pressure and peer support led me to writing something, about the show. And that led to everything that I do now. So
you can't just turn up every week and say, oh, we killed another boss.
I did for a long time. And it felt real stupid after a while.
All right. Well, let's go back in time a little bit, Felicia. You gave us some breadcrumbs there about your earliest years. Tell us, where did you grow up, and how come it was so cloistered for you?
I grew up in the Southeast, so everywhere I don't know if you'd want to visit there. I mean, there's some beautiful things and good food down there, but there's a lot of cultural issues in the Southeast. And my dad was stationed at an Air Force base in southern Mississippi, and it's like they were the worst schools in the world, like in the nation. So my mom just decided to homeschool us, and she really had no other plan than that. And it was more unschooling than anything. There'd be books around the house, and she'd be like, can you do some math today? But there was no supervision, no holding me to anything. And then we go to lessons. So I do ballet for a couple hours a day, and I do violin lessons, and I do some plays at night. And my brother would do karate and drums and piano. And that is it. That was every day. I'd wake up whenever I wanted. I would watch TV. I would force myself to do a bunch of stuff because I had that sort of desperation to please other people and be impressive. My brother would just read all day. And we both turned out pretty good. I wouldn't say that we're super, super socially adept. But I will say that it was a choice. And who knows what would have happened if I went to public school? Who knows? I know that I took a lot of great things away from my experience as a child. If I were going to do that with my child, I would put a little more effort into socialization and getting my kid around other people and learning how to navigate just existence a little bit more. But I knew a lot of stuff, and every single thing I learned has come into play in my very weird career. So, all right, it is what it is.
I was sort of visualizing that scene you described earlier of being 14, meeting up with these dudes who you play your muds with at the arcade, and your mum being kind of over in a corner watching to make sure you're okay, basically.
Yep, he got it.
What was her take on it? Was she, how did she respond?
Again, she's a little out there, man. I mean, she's a little out there. I will say that she was supportive. She's like, great. I mean, I don't know how to describe her. It is a situation where it's very laissez-faire, and she was kind of hanging out with me, just chumming around. I can't describe. I don't know how to. I don't even know how to put it that it was. It was strange.
Yeah. Did she ever play games with you?
She was the reason why I'm a gamer. My grandfather was a very, very accomplished nuclear physicist. He worked for Lockheed and the government and all this stuff. He was, very, very involved in the accelerator and the venture of the laser and all this stuff. So he gave us this cast off 386 computer. It was like a laptop. I put it in my biography because it's so ridiculous. I still have, the picture of it. It's a tiny little green and black screen. And I would watch her play Leather Goddess of Phobos, the Infocom games.
Yeah.
And then I would also watch her log on to CompuServe, which was the earliest commercial way of people connecting on the internet, and arguing about politics with people on that all the time. So really my mom inspired everything in my life because it was so early, and I would just sit on her lap and be like, oh, what are you doing? You're just arguing about somebody named Reagan? I've no idea who this person is. On the
proto-internet, the world's, a very early forumite, I guess she was, right?
It's true. It was just forum art. She was griefing on forums very early.
Amazing. And you described playing the violin. You played it to an extremely high level because I believe you were offered a space at Juilliard, which you only get offered if you're, the best of the best.
It was the pre-program, but yes,
right.
I was accepted by a very famous teacher there to train when I was 14 or 15, and we just didn't have the money to go there, but I did an audition and I got in, so that was great.
Yeah, that's a good boost, isn't it?
Yeah. I was just bored. I was bored and I just practiced a lot. It really was not and I happened to be very good at it. And I later got a full scholarship to college at 16 just because my professor who worked at University of Texas Austin was like, do you want to go to college next year? And I was like, please get me out of here. So that was
Right.
how I ended up starting college.
So cool. And how did you respond? Were you disappointed that you didn't get to pursue the violin further? Or was it like, well, I got, they offered me a place, that's all I needed? What was your response to it?
I mean, no, that was devastating. I mean, I was like, why did we go? If you knew we couldn't afford this. No, it wasn't good. I mean, listen, I don't think my mother was ill-intentioned in any way, but I think the fact that she had very large aspirations, but not a lot of follow-through in a lot of things, I think that was really disappointing as a kid. That's why I'm like, where do you want to go to camp? My kid goes to wherever she wants, But yeah, it is what it is. Again, I love my mom. I think she's a wonderful person. She made me who I am. And I could certainly be like, I'm not going to do that with my kid, but she did so many things that her mom didn't do. And I'm so grateful for them. So it is, we all have things we have to overcome, advantages we have, and then we just work with what we have. So yeah, I guess I'm very glad in retrospect I didn't go to Juilliard because that's in another world and that's a different path. And there's no way I probably would have off-ramped from the violin. Whereas at University of Texas, I got a full scholarship for violin. I ended up getting a merit scholarship and kind of double majoring in math and music. And I was able to take like political classes. I was 16, so no one wanted to date me. It was illegal.
Yes.
So I just took like 20 credits a semester and just loved learning. So it's not really a real typical college experience, but I did get to kind of branch out and learn about the world through college. And that's why even now I'm like, wow, can I just go back to college and live there forever? That would be so great.
Wow. Sounds like you had the perfect attitude to education. Like so many kids, and myself included, don't really realize the opportunity when you're in it, right? But it sounds like for whatever reason, you grabbed it with both hands.
It was my way out of a very isolated place, but I think you're totally right. Like my kid, I've had her change schools many times and I've sent her to very expensive private schools, more standard schools as well. And like my requirement is that she goes and she learns to love what she's learning. She wants to learn more. Like, I don't care what grade she gets. I don't care where she goes from here. I don't care if she goes to college. Like I told her, if you decide you need to use a robot, an AI to think for you and do your work, I don't want you going. You figure out where you want what you want to learn, and you have money and savings to do that. You want to go learn how to make the best croissants in the world? Spend your college money there. You want to learn plumbing? Spend it there. Hairdresser? I don't care. But whatever you do, you need to find and derive joy from that. And I think that's the sad thing about learning that I've seen on every level, where, it's very institutionalized and it's not aimed toward making kids realize that, what they respond to matters in their life. And so kids should be shown a buffet of life, and they don't really know themselves until they're like, my kid just this year, I'm like, I think she kind of knows who she is. She doesn't, you can't really identify who you are because you're literally forming as a person. And so especially in the elementary years, it should be like, let me show you this. Let me show you what it is like to see a dump truck, up close. Let me show you what a ballet is. And you never know what you're going to stumble across. But if you're not exposed to things and you're not encouraged to be somebody who your interests are valid, the way your body sparks to something matters long-term for you, you just never know what you might be missing in life. I feel like it's just the greatest tragedy because every child is so creative and curious and adventurous and kind. And we teach all those things out of them.
Great perspective, Felicia. Love that. All right, let's come to your second game. We're going to November 2011 for this one. Tell us what's the game. Why'd you love it?
Okay. This is really I will say that this is part of a series because I've loved all these games my whole life. But this one is particularly Skyrim is one that I played way too much of. I played it to the point where it's hundreds of hours. And if I needed to play one game for the rest of my life, I could probably still play Skyrim. But I remember as a teenager getting stuck in a wall in Daggerfall and the original Oblivion, right? And I just played Oblivion Remastered. I was like, well, I could play this game all day for the rest of my life as well. So it really is the whole world of Elder Scrolls that I'm obsessed with, and I don't know why. But for me to roam this first-person world and have castles and marry lizard men and kill things over and over again is like the greatest joy.
Very good. How long did you spend in the wilds of Skyrim then?
I think it's like 400 or 500 hours.
Oh, geez,
sure.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a lot. It was like my go-to during all the stressful times. I think I launched my company, Geek Sundry, in 2012. So when Skyrim came out, I was like having a nervous breakdown. It was like a slow-moving, absolute shredding of my personality from overwork and too high standards and every single thing in the world. So this was my escape. I could get away from this horrible cage that I built for myself by escaping it to Skyrim. And I don't know, I just love it. I hate Lydia. I love hating her. I had a lizard husband named Scout Mini Marshes, and he's very sexy. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. The great thing about it is you can see the humanity in these games. I kind of like that they're buggy all the time. I like how they break. I like that there is a rough edge to all these games that make you realize it's real. And I don't know, I just really respond to it.
Yeah, so good. And RPGs in particular, I think, are really good at being refuge when you've got a lot going on in your life, or when you're finding progress difficult or challenging or whatever. Like, they're just so reliable, aren't they? If you hit enough swamp rats, you hit level 2, you can progress really reliably. They're really just and fair systematically, you know?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and I definitely like to project myself into games, like I think Kingdom Come Deliverance is one of those games that I think if I could have played as a woman, I would have played 500 hours of that game. I still think it's a wonderful game, and I played a lot of it, not to the point where I became completely obsessed, because I think there's just, I just want to be myself, a version of myself, a high elf version or, wood elf version of myself in this game, and project myself into this world where, again, I think especially if you're an entertainer, it doesn't matter how talented you are. It really is luck and being prepared for opportunities and being in the right place at the right time and all these other things. And when you don't have control over your life, you just want to be in a place where you have some control over your advancement a little bit. And I think that's it. That's Elder Scrolls,
Yeah, video games are very good for that. Yeah. All right, Felicia, let's come back to your story. So we left you, you're at college, you kind of, as a homeschool kid, you taught yourself. Now you're sort of throwing yourself into college and learning everything that you can. At what point do you decide that you're going to head to Hollywood?
I was 16 going to college. I always lived with my parents. I did not learn how to drive. My mother drove me to school every day. So this is not a good experience. This is not ideal college situation, but I was like the little prodigy. I always won every, competition. I did a lot of soloing, and everyone thought I was going to be this violinist, I was the best one there. And I did not want to do it. And I think, I always like to roll the dice, and one of my later games that we're going to talk about is kind of like goes toward that. And I think that's why I kind of stayed in Hollywood. Like you said, you never know when the phone is going to call and you get to hit the lottery. And they might be a small lottery. It might be just like a small, voiceover job or like an acting job. But you never know when those jobs might blow up into something new. And so you're always kind of jonesing for that, that lotto hit. And I don't know, it just feels like there's an aspect of that in being able to, I forget what I was talking about.
Well, you were talking about how the expectation on you was that you were going to become, a famous violinist.
Yes.
So.
And then, so that the problem was that I knew that I had a severe anxiety disorder, but I did not know it. And so I was so agonized when I would play. And I would, like, the slightest mistake, I would just collapse emotionally. I did not have any coping mechanisms, and I should have been in therapy. And I didn't even I still don't have a hold of my anxiety. But for now, I'm a functional human being with the aid of therapy and medication. I can function pretty good in normal circumstances. Back then, I had no idea. And that was not a culture when people were talking about going to therapy or dealing with your anxiety disorder. Like, there just wasn't, that wasn't part of our world, unfortunately. So, like, I knew that it was agonizing, and I knew that I had a limit to how good I could be. And I knew that I would never be the star that in my mind, I was. I would not be a famous soloist at the capacity that I had and my performance anxiety. And so I saw the best path I could possibly get maybe was to be part of a quartet, but really it was just to get a job at an orchestra and spend the rest of my life there, and on the weekends play at local churches, play Handel's Messiah every single Easter, play weddings, and I was already doing that. And I saw that this would be my life for probably the rest of my life, and it would be a good paying life, and I did not want it. I just wanted to know what else was out there. And I think it's, being so isolated, I'm just like, I don't know what else is out there. I cannot settle for this when I don't know what else is out there. And I had a insane idea that I was meant to be big for some reason. And, my love of theater and performing. And that was where I was able to channel on a stage where I had control over my performance and the audience and all that stuff. That's where I felt like I shone the best. I did not, for the record, shine when I moved to Hollywood. It was terrible. But the process by which I decided was that.
Okay, but I mean, tons of kids have those thoughts, right? That's, but not all of them actually do what you did, which is to pick up, pack a bag and go. So how did you get to that point? How did you get there? Just very practically.
And practically, I did plays in college, and my mother actually volunteered a lot. She volunteered for film festivals in Austin, and she got me involved in film, volunteering as well. And I met a ton of people from LA. So, and I got, doors open. When you're here, do this. When you're here, do this. And that was it. That was really the gift that I got given was, the connection of people who lived in LA who could be like, oh, they're going to help me be a famous actor. I mean, they didn't, but at the time I was like, oh, it's going to be easy. I'll just go there and I'll be on a show.
And when you do turn up, what happens? Where are you staying, and who do you call first?
I'm staying with a lot of people. I volunteer for a writers festival, and I found out that writers are powerless in Hollywood. But people directed me to. I saved up a lot of money in college playing violin at weddings and stuff. It's a very high paid job, relatively. And so I was able to move in with someone, and I did not get an agent, but I did get into acting classes, which I definitely needed. And I got a commercial agent after a while, and there's when I started actually working, doing commercials, because there's so many auditions all the time. Well, not now, but at the time that I was able to actually start making money. Not doing what I really dreamed about, but at least I was able to sort of like, oh, I could stay here now.
Right, okay. And it's not too long till you get your first big break. How did that come about? How did you get into Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
I clawed my way into Buffy because I got an agent, and he wasn't even that great an agent, but like sometimes a blind pig finds a truffle. Is that the saying? I have no idea. I randomly got called in.
To this.
I think he's dead. Anyway, so he, I got a really bad agent, and I got a job, and, you get a better agent off the job. But that was an amazing experience because I kind of felt like, oh, this is a place I belong. Because years of being in Hollywood, a couple of years was like, I don't belong anywhere here. Nobody cares that I have a math degree. Nobody Nobody cares I play the violin. All these things that I've accomplished in my life are worth dirt here. And
Right.
I have an anxiety disorder. So I'm going to have a collapse. I'm going to collapse every time I get close to something important. I got the Buffy job only because they made me go and do like a last minute monologue reading. And they just were like, here, you have 30 seconds, come in. And because I was like so discombobulated, I actually let my real self out and I got hired.
You didn't have time to get in your own head.
Yeah, exactly. But it was great. And it also, I was on that show for 8 months on and off. And the fact that I learned what it was like to be on a show, what it was like to belong somewhere, it was just so formative to me.
Amazing. All right, Felicia. Well, let's come to your third game for now. So we're getting more recent now. This is from 2016. I can't believe actually it's 10 years ago that this came out. But anyway,
I can't
tell
believe
us,
that.
What's the game and why'd you love it?
The game is Stardew Valley. And I love it because it is perfect. I don't know what else to say. Stardew is... I am a big cozy gamer. I stream twice a week. And the last couple of years, I have just only been playing cozy games. I love growing a virtual turnip. I love mining. I love relating and dating, possibly, people who are not real in video games. Everything about the cozy world is so wonderful to me. And Stardew is something that I had played a little bit before COVID, but I started a farm in COVID with some of my guildmates and other friends. And we added a mod that we could have 8 houses. And so some of my mods and my guildmates and other friends, we had a farm and we worked together and we made this farm awesome. People would get married, they would get divorced, they would have kids. It was just so fun. And I just love the regularity about it. Just the whole design of Stardew is something that I will literally play any game that rips off Stardew. And I know that Stardew kind of ripped off another game, but that was
Harvest Moon. Yeah.
Stardew is the best.
Yeah, so good. Yeah. And for listeners, we had the creator Eric Barone on the show last year, so you can go back and listen.
Oh my God, I would fangirl so bad. He definitely is doing something for the 10th anniversary, right? Something's going to happen on February 26th.
I'm sure. Yeah, we'll see. It's definitely not bringing out his new game. So
take your time.
Yeah,
take your time. I'm a control freak too. Just do it right.
Nice. All right, let's come back to your story, Felicia. So I'm interested, you were saying that you rock up in Los Angeles and you kind of realized that, I suppose in like MMO terms, you'd been developing the wrong skills for the location. Like you say, you've got a very high math stat, very high violin stat. You're a bard.
My stats are wrong for this job. Yeah, you're right. That's funny.
But I wonder, did you feel like a bit of pressure at this point to try and fit in or be a certain kind of actor or woman in Hollywood? And how did you navigate that?
Well, I will say that I went, and I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I was a prodigy and I was very pretty. I was like very elegant. I would wear like floor-length gowns I was part of the Austin Symphony. Like I had a thing. And that thing was not useful in Hollywood. In fact, I needed to look as young as possible, to play as young a role as I could, to get some credits under my belt, because all these other people who were my age had been working for like 15 years and everybody knew them and they were really good at what they did. So I cut all my hair off and I posed in ridiculous, like kid-like ways. And I started booking like teenage parts, which I was acting like I was 45 years old up until I moved to LA. I was like a classical lady. And here I am, like, just pretending that I've ever been to high school. I had no idea what I was doing. Who's been to high school? I don't even have a high school degree. I never actually graduated high school. So, like, it definitely was a wake-up call. But because I have a quirky face and I decided not to get a nose job and fix my teeth the way that all the people were telling me to do it, I basically cut my hair off and was the quirky secretary person. So I did get typecast as sort of this quirky weirdo, which I guess is me, but also I resented it because there was never a story about me. I was just always like the humorous sidekick or like the weird quirky woman working at a desk on a commercial, and I got really pissed off. And that's what led to me writing The Guild, which is like a girl who plays video games, like that was me. That was a character I could play, and I didn't see her out there. And that's where it went. It was really just spite and anger and resentment and depression. That's all the fuel that makes me do anything, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, tell me about the very first time that making that decision, because I get all of that. I get all of the emotions that are like driving you into that, but also it can be quite, doing your own thing, your own self-produced thing was not the path you were on. You were trying to make it via a certain set of rules that operate in the world that you were in, that operate in all vocations, no matter what they are. And then, setting up a camera, it was just not in the culture at that time, like making your own content in that way. So, yeah, how did you practically do that? Like, what equipment did you own?
No. And I didn't want to do it. I'll go on the record that this was not my idea and it was terrifying. And I'm very good at following rules and doing things that will please other people. At the time, now this is my specialty. I'm out of the box because spite and anger will be like, well, you can't keep my voice down. I'm going to say this, especially when people I don't really respect or connect with tell me that my thing is shit. I'm like, no, I'm going to show you that people like my shit.
Yep.
Of whatever degree, So it was my co-producer, Kim Evie, who was part of that women's support group. She was my teacher at a sketch comedy place where I took writing lessons, for the first writing lessons I ever took. And she and I connected, and she invited me to the support group. And she filmed one of her sketches and put it on this new YouTube thing. And it went viral. And I think it was like David Spade had a thing where he showed the clip and she got optioned. So like she had found one of the very first paths of success for her show. And she got budget to make a whole series on this thing called Crackle. Sony was doing it. So it was like the very earliest Web 1.0 kind of startup stuff. And she's the one who was like, hey, nobody understands this, half-hour script that you wrote, but let's just make it for the web. And then maybe people will see it and make it as a TV show.
So, it's Friday night, and still jobless, yay. I haven't left the house in a week. My therapist broke up with me. Oh, yeah, there's a gnome warlock in my living room, sleeping on my couch. Wait, so you're firing me? I mean, you're my therapist. Is that even medically legal? How is that legal?
I'm sorry, Sid, but you don't seem willing to work on your addiction.
I've been establishing the parameters like we talked about. Kind of.
You can't grow if you're still immersed in an imaginary social environment.
It's not imaginary. I told you.
Can't get them off you.
Wait,
Fuck.
I'm dying. I need heals. Heal me.
Incoming. I play with real people.
Have you met them face to face?
I hear them. It's good enough for the blind.
Sid, you need a genuine support system at this time in your life, not
Okay, Dr. Hammond, you're killing me. Like, literally. Can I just call you back later? What?
Forget it. I'm down.
That was really our impetus. So we did the first 10 pages of the script and uploaded it to YouTube. But the minute it was up there, I was like, I don't want to do anything else because I like these comments, most of them.
Yeah, how quickly did you start getting that feedback? Because was YouTube small enough that sort of you could upload something and everyone would see?
It was small enough in that episode 3, the last one that we did for our several $100s, was featured on the front page of YouTube. And that made us viral. Without that, I don't know if we'd ever really, I mean, we did reach audience because having grown up on the internet, proto-internet, and having a webpage in college, on GeoCities or whatever the hell, I was in my game. I was like, I will go to every blog and I will email every single person who might like my show. And I mean, I'm not kidding. It was 12 hours. I treated it like a World of Warcraft job, and it was actually at work that I paid off because the internet was very small back then. And like, if you blind emailed somebody who had a blog, they would probably answer. And several influencers picked, early in tech people would just share it with other tech people, and it took off. So it was a very small, wonderful world where, actually that kind of cold calling worked. And that's where it just took off from there.
Amazing. God, so exciting. But you're so right. Like all of your experiences that you'd had in the 10, 15 years prior to that, just being, you were conversant in this world in a way that probably none of your peers trying to do the same thing were, right? You knew all the websites to go to, you knew who, the right blogs were to get featured on, et cetera, et cetera. So you just had like such a super advantage, didn't you, I suppose?
Yeah, I was like the first one. Like we self-financed the first season, and we were like, we want to make more about all these deals. People are trying to buy the show. And I was like, I'm not giving you the rights to this. You don't know what you're doing, Hollywood person. So we put a PayPal button up on the website that I programmed myself. I answered every single email. I answered every single comment, like obsessively. And in a meeting, somebody was like, well, maybe you could put a PayPal button up. And I did it. And we got enough to do the whole season like in a week. But that was predicated on pre-selling DVDs that we printed ourselves and packaged ourselves. So it was crazy. So now I'm doing, I'm prepping to do a Kickstarter. I'm like, this is so complicated, but also like, oh my God, you have resources to help you do these things. It's just a different world.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. Yeah. It's like, you're describing it's like bands, I suppose, back in the 60s or 70s or whatever, like, sort of putting their stuff on, well, not cassettes, but like vinyl or whatever, and printing it and handing it out, word of mouth, all of that's great stuff. How much did that first, you said you self-funded the first season, how much did it cost?
It was like $500, or maybe it was like $800.
Is it?
That was the first 3 episodes. And then it was a couple $1,000s we got to finish the whole season. And that was by pre-selling DVDs. I actually took the PayPal button off at a certain point because I didn't have room. The theme music wouldn't cover all the donors at a way where you could see their names. I mean, I could have found a solution to that. I don't know, but I
play it twice.
I will tell you, my business savvy does not meet my creative savvy. I've proven that over and over.
All right, Felicia, let's come to your fourth game. We're going to 2018 for this one. Very well-known Ubisoft series. What's the game?
It's Assassin's Creed Odyssey. And for the record, I'm not a huge fan of the other Assassin's Creeds. I just love Assassin's Creed Odyssey because of the main character. She's a lady. I chose to play the lady. And the writing is so good. I love Greek mythology. I just have a book that's coming out that's based in ancient, it's a Greek myth story. So, and one of the reasons why I think I wrote this book is because I was obsessed with Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It's just, it's versus like it is kind of open world, but it does have a lot more structure than like Skyrim or World of Warcraft does, in my opinion. But the writing and the sense of humor, but also the seriousness of it and the stakes and the voice acting, it's just it's everything a video game should be. It delivers on every level. Like Elder Scrolls is great, you will not say that the characterization is wonderful. And especially, you know, there's no there's nothing. There's no like story as much behind it. You know, there's wonderful quests. Like I always love doing the Thieves Guild, Assassin's Guild, all that stuff. But Assassin's Creed Odyssey it has a linear spine that it's really, really satisfying. And then there's so many side quests. And it was just obviously made with love. I don't know a lot about the people who made it. But I just feel like there was passion and love and really artistic storytelling that went into an already really sophisticated, wonderfully beautiful game.
Lovely. Very well put. Oh. I got into Assassin's Creed Syndicate. I don't think I played Odyssey, so I need to do that one.
And like the way that they played with all the myths and the monsters and, you know, I don't know. It's just great. And the voice acting is so good. And it's just fun. I could just sneak around stabbing people in the back all day, every day. I don't know. I love playing stealth. Like, of course, in Elder Scrolls, I play a stealth, you know, archer. That's just, I know it's totally cliched, but it's exactly what I want to play. But Assassin's Creed is like more upfront. And I'm not an aggressive gamer. I don't want to be hunted in a game. It's not appealing for me at all. I need low-key things. My anxiety is already too high and I can't sleep even after Fortnite. I'm like, that's too intense for me. I do like Fortnite, but that's about as crazy as I get. So, you know, for me to be able to sneak around, you know, remember Dishonored? That I did all of Dishonored and I only killed one person the whole time, which was so stupid. I didn't get the achievement because early in the game I killed someone and then I decided not to kill anybody for the whole time. I should have restarted, but whatever, it's fine.
Yeah.
Same thing with Assassin's Creed. I would just go around stabbing people silently, and it's just so satisfying.
Yeah. Very good. Okay, let's come back to your story then. So I'm interested in like how the success of the guild in those, you know, in the earlier period of it changed, you know, your mental state as you're going into more traditional auditions and things like that. Because of course you continue working in TV and film, but now you've got this thing that you own yourself and you've had loads of success with. Did it change things? Did it ease some of those anxieties you'd felt before?
No. I mean, in ways, it made me super confident because I knew what to do here. And I was inventing along the way, you know, like nobody was doing what we were doing. We had no support. And I would just have an idea of like, hey, I should find a website that allows me to put some pictures in a row. Like, and I found Pinterest like the week after, you know, like it launched. Like I was just like, oh, I need something like this. I'm not saying I'm a genius. I'm just like, it was a time when so many new things were happening tech-wise that you could dream something and then a tool would be there. Somebody would have been a little bit ahead of you, but offer that to you and you could get on board really early. And that early adoption is really what helped my career a lot. I was one of the first on Twitter, so like Hollywood paid attention to me then. Never made a ton of money on sponsorships because I was too early and I didn't post sexy pictures of myself because it was super important. Because I was trying to be a thing that I don't think male gamers would have respected as much if I had been posting, you know, pictures of me licking a controller, which God bless you, man. I probably would have made a hell of a lot more money because then Hollywood would have been like, we understand that gamer. She's sexy. Like it is like battling cliches at every turn. And so I walked a path where I was like, I need to make sure that I'm just a neutral gamer, which I think kind of sold women short a little bit. But hey, I'm not going to retcon what I did. I just did what I was comfortable with. And again, it did not make me all the money that it probably should have had it played it different. But it is what it is, right? I did what I did. You
wouldn't have done it differently anyway because that was your community. You know, that was authentically where you'd come out of. So to do anything else would have probably felt completely false to you, I would have thought.
It did, yeah. And I never wanted anybody to think that like, oh, the money is more important now. Like I would never stop streaming. If I won the lotto tomorrow, I would still do my weekly streams. I really would. I have a lot of joy in that. And I've known some of the people in that chat for like 20 years almost, you know? So like, it's so important to me. And yeah, I will say that it was hard to have success and then have Hollywood want that success, but not really understand it. And then I felt the need to try to please them, but then I was torn. It was bad. I mean, especially the success nobody told me that you need to be as prepared for success as you are for failure. I was very prepared. I got really prepared for failure, but when success comes knocking, everyone wants a piece of you and they'll rip you apart trying to get it, and they don't care about you at all, right?
Yeah, it's hugely disruptive, isn't it? Very difficult to know who you are in the immediate aftermath of success, I think.
That's exactly right. And had I known myself better, I wouldn't have gotten pulled in a lot of directions business-wise that were not for me, like Hollywood wanted me to be a writer-producer. So then I went around for years pitching TV shows, but it's like, that's not really what I wanted to do. I didn't want to work within these big structures where they control you so much to make things. It was not for me. But I still did it because that's what was impressive. And I needed Hollywood to like what I was doing on the web so that I could keep doing it because the money wasn't going to come from anywhere else. So it was, again, I did the best I could, but my naivety and my lack of knowing what I wanted for myself and being willing to hold on to that was really a limiting factor. The best things that happened for me were writers who loved what I did, and they wrote me parts on shows like Eureka and Supernatural and The Magicians and all these things. Those were where I really had joy, because my best, the best life that I can imagine is acting and being taken care of as a host and an actor in those big, very controlled environments. And then I go off and do my small creativity that I really own and I'm passionate about on my own. So that subsidizes what I do, which doesn't need to be huge. It could just be what it is, but that's where I'm happiest. So, I'm gotten here, but it's taken a long time. And that's always the advice I give to somebody. Like, really be sure that you know what you want from your work. If it blows up tomorrow, what's the next step you want, not what somebody's going to offer you.
Yeah. What did it take for you to reconnect with some of those things? Once you've had this completely disorientating success that comes and starts pulling you in all kinds of different directions, you don't really know where to turn. What was it that got you back to the source?
Just devastation on many levels. I was involved in that Gamergate thing, and a lot of people turned against me, and I became really vilified for many years. And it was like just me saying, don't be jerks, but it was twisted. And so the video game world kind of dropped me for many years because I became controversial because 1,000 people would show up saying how much I sucked, when I did something. And then my company never got, we did so many revolutionary things at Geek Sundry, but it was so early.
Yep.
We were the first ones to do a D&D live stream. It was because I love Twitch. And I was like, hey, let's stream D&D. And now it just owns everything. But it was so early, right? Nobody really cared. And everyone was like, nobody cares. Yeah, it was just really, really hard. So then that didn't go well for me.
Video game film adaptations, you were very early with some of that, right?
I tried to pitch so many video games as TV shows and movies, and I got amazing people on board, and nobody really cared. Yeah, it was all 5-10 years too early. And so I got pregnant, and which was really hard for me because of the stress I was under, and I had to leave my company because of the stress. I had to choose between my two babies. And then nobody cared about me because I wasn't useful for anybody anymore. So I was at my very lowest, and then I was running around Hollywood trying to be relevant in any way, and people were kind of bored with me, and I was really awful, and the fact that, the world of gaming I didn't feel in my heart. Maybe this was self-imposed, but I just kind of went into isolation. But it was also me trying to bang my head against what Hollywood would find me useful. And when COVID hit, it was the biggest gift ever because I was able to cut it all off and be like, hey, you're a human outside all of these industries and what they might find you useful for. Just do what you love. And that was where you found joy before, you'll find it again. And now, I finally kind of found that. But it was really hard, and it really took a mental breakdown and all these things that were really hard to go through, but they were great because I'm a stable person who knows herself now, and I don't know if it's middle age or not, but it's fantastic. I want to live here forever.
That sounds great. Was there, you say COVID was kind of the catalyst because it cuts you off from the chase, right, of the things that you're, like you say, running around Los Angeles. You literally can't do that. Was there a moment then when you felt like you come through that? What was the specific moment? Can you paint that for us where you felt like you'd come through it?
I mean, I started streaming on Twitch in 2015 or 14. And I did it because I just sold my company and I was like, I have to have something for myself. I have to be in touch with the community in a way that I'm just a person again. And so when COVID hit, I was like, I think I could, and I had a nanny that I didn't want to fire because I could be around my kid. She was like 2 at the time. But I was like, I can't fire her. It's COVID. So like, I was like, well, keep working every day. And then half the day, I'll just go and play video games.
All right.
And so I did that and I wrote things that I knew would never be useful for Hollywood, one of which is coming out next month, The Last Daughter of Sparta. It's the mythic graphic novel. And so I was able to be like, oh, you could just do things you enjoy. And I love streaming. I love playing video games. And I love writing things that are maybe not useful for other people, but they make me happy. And so, yeah, it's like the last 5 years. The writer's strikes and the acting strikes and AI and all these things that are constantly being like, hey, you don't have this business anymore. You don't have this career, Like, it's just really tough for everybody in this business now. And I'm just like, it's actually gratifying because it just shows you that you're more than your job. It's like who's the figure skater who's right now, there's an American figure skater. She's like so cool and she quit and now she's back. And the equilibrium that she has on the ice in that she knows that her life does not depend on her doing well for other people. Her joy is just skating and doing her best, and she's going to love herself and no matter what. And that, I think, is the key to everything.
Yeah. So interesting. I mean, the idea that we shouldn't be defined by our jobs is, has been around. But I think in culture right now, especially for young people, there's so much pressure to put yourself online, to sort of give so much of yourself to the internet, right? That's if you want to make money that way, that really the boundary between who you are and the parts of yourself that you're monetizing is becoming so blurry. And I really like what you're saying here that, it's okay to like carve out a bit that is completely your own identity that's not for sale almost. Does that make sense?
No. I mean, I actually think if you look at any of the YouTubers who started with me, everybody burned out. And especially, I like to write longer form stuff. And like, you can't be constantly spewing out your point of view all the time and then have anything left over to gestate into something larger than yourself. You just can't. It is impossible. And so that's kind of the, disappearing and being able to live a life and have experiences that you can then put into your work, not just for the sole purpose of getting attention. It's so toxic and it's not sustainable and it's unfulfilling and you're not developing as a person because you're constantly thinking, what can I present versus what can I add to my life? So yeah, you're totally right. It's really hard and I would not want to be starting out now because it's just too saturated, too artificial, and too easy to just start chasing success versus figure out who you are before you do that.
Yeah. You're right. And the work can become shallow that way because we have to take in influence and have experiences that are just not things that we're putting down a camera, right? In order to go and create things. You can't, if you're constantly giving out, you soon use yourself up, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. And then and quite frankly, no one cares. They'll just click away.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so lucky I have several thousand people who I'm like, I think they'll always like what I do. And that's all you need. Like that's the nut as a creator, You have to appreciate those people and not abandon them to chase mass audience because the farther you get out from the core of who you are, the less people know you, the less they see you as a person, and the more likely they'll turn on you and dismiss you.
Yes.
It's like it's 80% of that is they'll disappear one day, and that's okay. No one could be loyal forever. Some people will be loyal forever, and if they aren't, that's okay too. You just have to learn how to just be zen and be in the moment, and you got to get old to do that. I don't know how to tell a 20-year-old to do that. You shouldn't probably listen to me.
All right. Really good, Felicia. Let's come to your fifth and your final game. This is fairly recent. February 2024 came out. Tell us what's the game.
I had to get a game that was quick and dirty and addictive. And I was going to go with Tetris because Tetris is my love. But Balatro has taken over my world. I cannot stop playing it. It is the thing that on my phone that I will reward myself. I will uninstall it from my phone when I've done something good. Like I will reward myself and reinstall it. I'm not kidding. I've uninstalled and reinstalled it probably like a dozen times a week because I just cannot stop playing it. I understand that it's not the most, I just think it's brilliant and it makes me happy. It is brilliant. And I would, I do that and I learn Polish. That's the way I get away from my doom scrolling. I go and I have my Anki app where I do learn a couple Polish words and then I get to play Balatro.
How come Polish? What took you there?
My grandmother was Polish and she passed away. And after she passed away, I think it was like 2 years ago now, I just wanted to do something to maintain my connection with her. And I always remembered her speaking Polish and feeding us Polish food. And I went and visited Poland, some of my relatives there, and I felt like, oh, wow, this is something that will allow me to grow into who I am and explore my roots. And so I just am really into it. I'm going again this year. And it's just, I don't know, it's a beautiful language, and it's really super hard. With the time that I've studied Polish, the last 2 years, I could be fluent in literally any Romance language. I am barely competent. I can read okay, but that's pretty much it with Polish. And there's just a lot to do, and I love it. I love the challenge of it.
Nice. All right. A bit of Polish and then some Balatro. Sounds like a good night in to me. All right, Felicia, let's go through your console. We've got World of Warcraft, The Elder Scrolls 5, Skyrim, Stardew Valley, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and Balatro. What a great console. So good. I ask all my guests to name their console so that we can market it to the world. Have you got an idea for what you might like to call it? What can we put on the box?
Oh, wow. The Endless Hole.
Okay, let's do it. I foresee no problems.
Not at all. You can't. Nobody's going to put an eggplant.
Marketing will love it.
You love it.
That's great. All right, just before I let you go, Felicia, one last question. We've kind of circled this a bit, but what does success look like to you now compared to 10, 20 years ago?
That's really interesting. Success is knowing that you've made something that needs to exist, whether it's received well or not. I truly believe that you only have a finite time to live on this world, and the fact that you have so much in yourself that you really should put out into the world to make an impression. And it's not about naming buildings after yourself. It's not about making hit things that everybody will remember. It's about putting yourself out there in a way where you get a little bit of immortality in touching other people with whatever you create or whatever you do. So being a good friend, being a good mother, being a good, somebody who makes something that shifts another person's life just a little bit in a direction that makes them happier. That's all you can really ask for. I can't guarantee that anybody will care about anything I make. The fact that I had something blow up and define me is 1 in a million chance. To have it happen twice is very, very rare. But I know that the things, rather than chasing attention and chasing success, allowing it to come to you because you know yourself really well and you know what you need to do in this world and the people you need to do it with is so much more gratifying. That way you don't have any empty holes in yourself that you need to fill with whatever it is, you grab onto. If you know yourself well enough, you know what you need to do. And I guess that sort of self-knowledge is something I've always strived to get to, and I feel like I'm kind of in that place. Of course, every other day I feel like, oh no, it's not going to be good enough. But you know what? You got to learn how to put the voices aside, because again, at the end of the day, only a couple people matter in this world.
Beautifully put, and wise words indeed. Thank you, Felicia, for sharing with us your perfect console and for being so open and honest. And yeah, I feel like I've learned so much. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. You're a great interviewer.
Thank you.
I can't wait for the vastless hole or whatever the hell. I can't wait for it to be a hit.
Thank you to my guest, Felicia Day. So grateful to Felicia for coming on My Perfect Console, for sharing with me her 5 games, and of course for taking us through her story and all of those twists and turns. Her experiences growing up alongside the modern internet, I think, sort of being a teenager in the late 90s, then, in her early 20s, in the early 2000s, and really being at the vanguard of so many big changes in the way that stories are told on the internet. When she first set up that camera and started telling her story and uploaded it to YouTube. These days, there is nothing more ordinary than something like that. But at the time, it was completely revolutionary. She was there right at the start. It was interesting that she said and admitted here that it was not something she felt comfortable doing and didn't really want to do it. And then she did it. And I think saw the future unravel before her and how it was all going to be from then on. I particularly appreciated Felicia just talking about her experiences of, I suppose, being someone who puts himself out into the world, who has made their living through their profile on the internet. There are not many people who did that natively, I would say. Of course, she had some profile from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but because of the guild and its tremendous success in those early days of YouTube, she is someone who essentially became famous through the internet. And I think perhaps her perspective on what it means to, I suppose, be an influencer, be a public persona on the internet, she knows better than perhaps anyone else, or a very small group of people who have had that range of experiences that she has, both working in television, both working in film, but of course, being on the internet, being immersed in these online video games, in those communities, knowing sort of so many people on the internet in those very early days when she was trying to tell people about the guild. The world is very different now, but she's lived through it all. And I appreciated her talking about, I suppose, what that costs, what it costs to be that public figure, to be constantly opening up your entire life to the world, to sort of monetizing every aspect of what you do. And I think that is something that's extremely pertinent for generations of young people now who see the example of streamers, of Instagram, whatever their niche is, be it video games, be it makeup, be it fashion or whatever. That's the way in which people are encouraged to open up their lives in that way. And it can be costly, and it does, I think, pay to have a separation of who you are from always having the camera on. Of course, Louis Theroux's recent documentary on the manosphere was super instructive because, of course, you've got these young men. This is on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, it's worth watching. But he was spending time with online male sort of manosphere personalities. And what was most striking was not the heinousness of their views that they're putting forward, but the way in which they do that to make money. And, that's they're playing the game in some ways. And of course, they're making a toxic, awful culture while doing so, and probably dragging people into their net who earnestly believe some of the things that they say about women and about minority groups or whatever it might be. But really, that's not their primary motivation. And that's the world that's been created. And I'm not saying that Felicia has anything to do with that world, but it's interesting that she came up and has found ways to exist and thrive as the superstructure around her has changed. Interesting stuff. Of course, I say all of this, Felicia is still a very well-known personality. She's, big on Instagram and on TikTok and all of that stuff. So you can follow her along there and what she has to say, and you can follow her work as well. Go back, watch some of the Guild. It's very sweet to go back, I think, and watch some of those early episodes. If you're watching this on video, then I put in a little bit of a clip from the very first episode of the Guild that she uploaded, and you would have heard it on the audio version of the podcast. But you can watch all of them. They're still on YouTube there. You can go back, buy the DVDs if that's something that you want to do as well. It's exciting to see how the Guild might be coming back. Like I say, I went to London to watch a sort of theatrical read-through of the musical version of the Guild that's been produced. It does feel a bit like a period piece in a weird way. That seems something that's very strange to say about World of Warcraft and, the early 2000s, but I suppose that's true. They really capture what it was like to be a young person on the internet or playing MMOs or whatever it was that you were doing at that time, assuming that you were doing those things. It's funny, it's sweet, the casting was great. Let's see what it becomes. It sounds like as well Felicia's trying to get a film away. So we'll see what happens with all of that. But anyway, just wanted to add some of my own thoughts there at the end. I also liked what she said, that you only need, if you're a crazy person who's putting something out into the world, she said, I think you only need several thousand people to make a living from that long term through your life. I think the comedian Stuart Lee said something very similar, that you only need, I think he said you need, 2,000 or maybe 20,000 people who are willing to pay £5 once a year to come and see your show. And that's a career that can see you through. I think that's still true, and it's certainly true in Felicia's case. So, all of which is to say, I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I did in that conversation. I think we went to some interesting places, and let us know what you think in the comments. You can do that on Spotify. You can do that if you're listening to this on Patreon, and we've got a great community there. It's patreon.com/myperfectconsole. You can become a free supporter there, but if you pay, I think $5 or $6 a month, then you get your episodes early, you get them ad-free, you get a bonus episode every month with myself and comedian Glenn Moore, and you also get video versions of the podcast as well before everyone else. They are dripping onto YouTube. I don't know if I'm going to keep doing that or not. We'll see, but anyway, you definitely get video versions if you're on patreon.com/myperfectconsole. You can follow us along on various social media channels. We're on Blue Sky, we're on X, we're on Instagram, and we're on TikTok. As ever, a big thank you to Big Games Machine for their help and their support running those channels. Give them a follow along their work. If you've got a game coming out, something like that, then look into them. They might be able to help you as a PR agency who specializes in video games. You write to me at myperfectconsole@gmail.com with your thoughts, with your suggestions for guests. I do have guests booked up now until the sort of middle of the summer, but I'm looking to invite more people on the show. I've got like a few big fish that I'm aiming for, and some people that have agreed to come on the show, but we haven't quite figured out dates and times. Some real legendary producers of games and other things in the world. So, but do let me know if you have anyone that you'd like to hear from on the show, or indeed if you are someone who likes video games and would like to come on the show to talk about whatever it is that you've got coming out. Always pleased to hear from you. Okay, next week I've got a special guest as ever. It's the London Games Festival coming up. That is a huge event that happens in London for a week every year since 2016. It's been running, and it's run by Michael French, a good friend of mine, someone who I've known in and around the games industry for a long time, because he started out as a journalist. He worked for MCV and for Develop. He worked for Edge magazine for a while as their online editor. He was on official PlayStation magazine, and then he now works with the mayor's office in London, Sadiq Khan, and with Film London, I think it is. And they put on this huge extravaganza. If you've been in London ever around springtime, you may have seen they take over Trafalgar Square. around Nelson's column, quite often have video game related things, talks. They have, culture first video games, let's say, that they like to platform at this event to broaden people's perception of what video games can be. It's a great thing. I had a wonderful chat with Michael, who's just such a lovely guy, really interesting character. I love his vision and his passion and what he's been doing with that particular festival. And very excited to share that conversation with you. So I will be back again next week with Michael, with his 5 games and with one more perfect console.